Squeeze one drop of printer ink onto your fingertip. Now place one drop of the world's finest perfume right beside it. Chanel. Hand blended. Sold in crystal. The ink is worth more. Not close. More. That little plastic cartridge in your office holds one of the most expensive liquids on planet Earth. More costly, drop for drop, than premium perfume. More costly than vintage champagne. Ounce for ounce, it's been ranked with liquids you'd never dream of keeping next to your stapler. And almost nobody printing their tax returns has any idea. But here's the part that should bother you. The ink isn't expensive because it's rare. It's expensive because someone decided it should be. And they built an entire trap to make sure you pay. Stay with me, because once you see how the trap is built, you will never look at that little low ink warning the same way again. Let's start with the number that breaks people's brains. Fine perfume sells for a few dollars per milliliter. Printer ink in some of those tiny starter cartridges can cost many times more. Scale it up to the size of a single gallon. And premium ink has been estimated in the thousands of dollars. Thousands. For a liquid that leaves the nozzle in droplets, thinner than a human hair. Now your gut says, fine, it must be brutally hard to make, some kind of miracle chemistry. Hold that thought, because the truth about what's actually inside that cartridge is going to flip this entire story on its head. We'll get there. First, you need to understand why the printer itself is a lie. Walk into any store. You can buy a brand new printer for less than a nice dinner. Sometimes less than the replacement ink for that exact same machine. Sit with how strange that is. The device costs less than the fuel it drinks. That is not a mistake. That is the whole plan. It's called the razor and blades model. Give away the razor, sell the blades forever. The printer is the bait, the ink is the hook. And the moment that machine lands on your desk, you quietly become a customer for life. But a cheap printer alone couldn't trap you. Because if the ink is this profitable, why couldn't you just refill the cartridge for pennies and walk away? People tried. And that's where the story turns dark. Look closely at a modern cartridge. There's a tiny microchip buried inside it. That chip has one real job. It is not to improve your printing. It's to watch you. It counts your pages. It tracks your ink. And in many cases, it decides whether the cartridge is even allowed to work. Refill it yourself? The chip may say no. Buy a cheaper third-party version? The printer can reject it as not genuine. Some cartridges even report themselves as empty, while ink is still sloshing around inside. You paid for that ink. You're simply not permitted to use it. And it gets stranger. Your printer drinks ink even when you're not printing. Every so often, it runs a cleaning cycle. It flushes ink through its own nozzles to keep them clear. That ink never touches a page. It vanishes into a pad and it's gone. Run out of one color, say yellow. And some printers refuse to print in plain black. You wanted a black and white document. The machine says buy yellow first. Even the calendar is weaponized. Cartridges can be programmed to expire. And once that date passes, the printer may reject perfectly good ink. Ink you paid for. Ink sitting right there, locked away by a date on a chip. And if you think that's the worst of it, wait until you hear what happened on a single morning not long ago, because thousands of printers turned on their owners overnight. And it was not a glitch. Picture it. People sit down to print. Same printer as yesterday. Same cartridge as yesterday. And suddenly, nothing. Cartridge not recognized. The ink hadn't changed. The printer had. A quiet software update had slipped in overnight and flipped a hidden switch designed to block non-approved cartridges. Machines people owned outright were reprogrammed to refuse the ink those people had already bought. The backlash was enormous. There were apologies. There were lawsuits. But the lesson underneath never really left. You may own the printer. You do not own the rules. So now the picture looks ugly. Cheap machine, locked cartridges, watching chips, remote switches, which brings us back to the thought I told you to hold. If they guard this ink like the crown jewels, surely the ink itself must be some priceless super substance. Here's the twist. The ink is genuinely clever. I'll give them that. It has to fire from nozzles in droplets counted in the millions per second. It has to dry the instant it hits paper, yet never dry inside the cartridge. It can't clog jets narrower than a single hair. It has to resist fading for years. That is real engineering, no lie. But here's the number that ruins the excuse. The actual cost to manufacture that ink is estimated to be a tiny fraction of what you hand over. Pennies of chemistry, sold at the price of luxury. The sophistication is real. The price has almost nothing to do with it. You are not paying for the liquid. You are paying for the business model. So let's close every loop. Why does ink cost more per drop than fine perfume? Not because it's rarer than perfume. Not because it's harder to make than perfume. It's because perfume only has to be sold to you once. Ink has to be sold to you again, and again, and again. The cheap printer got you through the door. The chip made sure you couldn't slip out the back. The software made sure the rules could change without asking. And that gentle, low ink warning is just the meter quietly starting over. Perfume is a purchase. Ink is a leash. That drop on your fingertip was never really about the ink. It was about making sure you always come back for more. And the quiet genius of it? You will.